Great. So if we could move to the next slide, please. The GSMA AgriTech Accelerator is funded by GIZ on behalf of the German Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development, the BMZ, and is implemented by GSMA. In terms of our structure today, if we could move to the next slide, please, we'll be using this time, and the objective of this webinar will be to introduce the GSMA, our AgriTech program, and the opportunity to apply for our accelerator, including the support on offer and the selection criteria. We have done 2 webinars in December, which provide a lot more detail on the technical assistance on offer and the eligibility criteria. So I would encourage you all to view that on our website. One of my colleagues will post a link to that in the chat window. We leave plenty of time for the Q&A during this session, so please feel free to put in your questions in the Q&A section that you see on top of the the Teams window. If you're joining from within the platform, if you're joining on a browser, you might not see the Q&A section, so please feel free to post your questions in the chat window. Now, to start off, the GSMA is the industry association for the mobile sector. We unite the mobile industry, unlocking the power of connectivity so that people, industry, and society thrive. Within GSMA, we have multiple functions. One of those is the Mobile for Development, which drives innovation in digital technology to reduce inequalities. So very much focused on social impact. Now, there are 4 key themes that the Mobile for Development unit looks at: digital inclusion, financial inclusion, resilience to climate change, and humanitarian response. This particular accelerator focuses on the first 3 of those. Now, within the Mobile for Development team, we have the AgriTech program, which focuses on digitizing agricultural value chains for the benefit of smallholder farmers. We focus primarily on improving their livelihoods, financial inclusion, and climate resilience. Over the past decade, we've worked with and advised both mobile network operators as well as agri-tech companies to design, develop, launch, and scale digital agriculture solutions that today reach over 15 million smallholders. As part of our technical assistance for this accelerator, you will benefit from the learnings and best practices that we have accumulated over all this time across multiple markets. Now, the vision of our program is equitable and sustainable food chains that empower farmers and strengthen local economies. How we go about doing this is we bring together and support the mobile industry, agriculture sector stakeholders, innovators, and investors in this space to design, develop, launch, and scale impactful and commercially viable digital solutions for farmers in the developing world. Now, that commercially viable element is very important because it's a big part of what we will be emphasizing in our in this accelerator as well, and I'll cover that in a second. Now, the 3 core areas that I mentioned before as well, and this will be a recurring theme across the accelerator as well as throughout this webinar. These 3 areas that we focus on: improving farmer livelihoods, facilitating inclusive access to services, markets, and access through and assets through digital technology, improving their financial inclusion by helping them develop economic identities that support or facilitate inclusive access to financial instruments, and improving their climate resilience. So those are the 3 areas that this accelerator will focus on as well. So what is the accelerator about, and what is it that we are offering? So the objective of the accelerator is, unsurprisingly, to accelerate the growth of innovative revenue-generating digital agriculture solutions that align with those 3 objectives that I've just mentioned: improving farmers' livelihoods, financial inclusion, and climate resilience. Over the next 2 years, implementation. So right now we are in the selection phase. We expect implementation to start from the 1st of June. And for 2 years from that point onwards, we will be supporting the cohort through a variety of different instruments that I will come to in a later slide, but they're mentioned over here as a starting point. Now, to cover the example use cases, this is as the title suggests, just a few examples of what the type of services that we are looking for. If your service does not fall into one of these categories but addresses the core objective of the accelerator, please feel free to apply. The basic idea is that we are looking to improve those three elements of smallholder farmers' lives. If we could go to the next slide, and this is where I wanted to cover the use cases in more detail. So when we talk about digital advisory, starting from the left, there's a variety of services that can fall into that category, and those are the sub-use cases that you see below digital advisory. As an example, agri-VAS services might be being delivered over any mobile channels, IVR, SMS, applications. Those would fall in this category. Agri-DFS will be access to digital financial services for farmers. And this would include elements like credit or loans, credit scoring, savings, or digital wallets. Now, to give you an idea, in many cases, the applicant might not have the license to provide loans. And in the application, you will see an opportunity to identify key partnerships that are necessary for you to deliver on the objectives that you are setting for yourself. So it's not necessary, for example, for credit that you have the required licenses, as long as your partners have licenses, and you can identify that within your application. When it comes to access to markets, digital procurement or agri-e-commerce, self-explanatory with the names. And the idea again is you see a lot of sub-use cases that I won't go into detail on, but you can feel free to raise any questions in the chat or the Q&A section if you have specific questions on use cases or sub-use cases. As a closing point with smart farming, you might see that the accelerator is open not just to crop-based farming, but also livestock or aquaculture management. So if you think that there are if your primary area of work is across those sectors and you use digital technology to improve those three core objectives of smallholder lives, then yes, you will be eligible for the accelerator's support. Now, what is it that GSMA is offering for those who are selected to become part of this cohort? There are 8 areas, and I will quickly run through them over here. Again, I will point to the webinar that we have already conducted in December, the recording of which is on our website. That is where we cover all of this in a lot more detail. But to provide you a quick overview, the user experience and design research workstream, basically, as the name suggests, we will be hiring a specialized UX consultancy that will help cohort members understand the needs of their farmers through in-field research that will be led by the GSMA market engagement managers and will help them identify areas to improve their product design based on feedback from users. We also have a business intelligence team within GSMA that will, and business intelligence analysts will be helping the cohort members make more sense of the data that they have on their services, help them analyze it, while the market engagement manager, who will be your primary source of contact from the GSMA and will lead this engagement, will be providing go-to-market consultancy on how to launch and scale new services. Our product iteration workshops that we have run for a very long time with in our previous engagements, and they've been very successful at identifying what is going well with the service, what is not going well, and how we can improve it. So during a product iteration workshop, we bring in data from the user experience work that we are doing, the data analytics that we are running, as well as the monitoring and evaluation surveys that you see as a separate tab over here, and what those surveys are bringing. And we use all of that data together with the cohort members' core team to identify those areas of improvement for the service. Another area of support will be investment readiness, where we will again hire a specialized consultancy to support with both provision of trainings on how to and capacity building on how to pitch to investors and improve your readiness for that. But we will also be leveraging our industry leading events such as Mobile World Congress Barcelona or Mobile World Congress Africa to provide opportunities to actually pitch to investors and raise funds. The MEL workstream I've already briefly mentioned, and this will be led by our market engagement manager from the GSMA side and supported again by a specialized consultancy that we will hire to support you on this. The insights function of the GSMA AgriTech team delivers a number of industry-leading publications, providing insights on opportunities within digital agriculture, on the business case, on models, on business models, and on what future opportunities might look like. So you'll have access to all of those insights as part of the cohort as well. And finally, we have an element of service-specific support where, depending on budget availability, we'll be able to provide specialized services to individual cohort members who might require them. So if we continue with the credit example, for example, if you have a requirement to improve your credit scoring models, we can bring on a consultant who is specialized in that area and can provide you feedback and ways to improve your scoring model, and also how to structure that entire process. Again, the GSMA market engagement managers have a lot of experience in all of this, so they will continue to lead and support on all elements of the technical assistance. Now, the accelerator is open to organizations that operate in this list of countries. So you'll see in Asia and Latin America, there's 3 countries each: Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru for Latin America, Jordan, Pakistan, and Cambodia for Asia. Whereas in Africa, you will see a number of countries. I won't read out each one, but please do have a look at this eligible countries list. And obviously, you have to be from one of the eligible markets to be a part. That's a necessary condition for becoming a part of the cohort. Now, one of the questions that we have been asked on this is registration in that market. Is that mandatory? And yes, that is mandatory. You should have an office registered and an organization registered in that particular market in order to be eligible to apply for the accelerator's support. Please do refer to our eligibility requirements in our term sheet. That is obviously a very critical element of, that's where you'll see all the eligibility requirements detailed. And in our previous webinar, again, which is available on our website, you'll see me walk through all of this in a lot more detail. So where we want to focus in this particular webinar is the application itself and the selection criteria. So the selection criteria is given in our term sheet. You can have a look at it over there as well. But I just want to highlight some of the key elements over here so that you understand when you're filling out the application, you can link back some of the questions that have been asked to the requirements highlighted here in the selection criteria. So as a starting point, having a very clear problem statement that lays out the farmer challenge that you're looking to resolve through your digital solution. And that challenge needs to create an impact on those 3 core objectives that I've mentioned: improving farmer livelihoods, climate resilience, and financial inclusion. Now, another key factor over here is how digital agriculture is an integral part of your business strategy. So if this is 5% of your work, it might not create as strong a case for becoming part of this cohort as for an organization that is completely dedicated to digital agriculture, because all of our support and all of our effort will be focused on the digital agriculture space. We'll also be assessing your existing service strength and you'll see quite a few questions on number of users, revenue, and so on. And similarly, it's very critical for you to identify, having gone through the term sheet and the other documents which are available in the applicant pack, which I will share later, how GSMA AgriTech's technical assistance will help you address your problem statement. So when we say user experience and product design is where we'll be focusing a lot of our energy, is that a core part of the support that you are looking for as well? And is that something that helps you achieve the objectives that you are laying out for yourself as an organization, and how well that aligns with your business strategy? Internal capacity is very important. This is, evidenced by questions that you will see around your product manager, your cross-functional team, your C-level sponsor. That to us kind of highlights your internal capacity to deliver on the project. You'll also see questions around your ambition and ability to scale, as well as achieve commercial sustainability. Now, that's again something that that we hold very near and dear, because when GSMA's support ends, we ideally want our cohort members to continue in a commercially sustainable manner on their own. A key part of our technical assistance is around fundraising and investment readiness. So again, having good insight into your investment plans is important for the panel to make its decision on the cohort members selection. A very, very key element that I would want to highlight over here is our focus on inclusion. So we want to make sure that the services we support create opportunities and equitable access for female farmers, youth, and/or farmers with disabilities. So if your service is targeting these segments specifically, please do highlight them. Please do highlight how you are doing this, and what you've done till now, and what you plan to do in the future to make sure that your service is inclusive. And you will see specific questions on that in the application. Finally, the commitment to the project, which we will be evidencing through your CXO support letters, or the existing partnerships that you have, or the strength of the product manager that you have assigned to lead this particular initiative. Now, a few other things to keep in mind. We strongly encourage applications from organizations who have female founders or board members. This is a key part of making sure that the services are inclusive, and not just at the senior senior leadership level, but good representation of women across the organization. We also encourage local entrepreneurs and representation of local talent at all levels of the organization. So, please feel free to highlight that in your application. And finally, partnerships, where you'll see a few questions on, the partnerships that you have or that you plan to have in order to achieve your objectives for the accelerator. So, a quick overview of our timelines. Right now, we're at the first stage where concept note applications are open. They started at the beginning of December, and applications will be open till the 10th of February at 5 p.m. GMT. So please do keep in mind 5 p.m. GMT that day, the applications you will no longer be able to submit. From there onwards, we will go into the selection process, wherein there's two rounds. So the first one, we'll review your concept note applications. We will then come back to you in early March with some clarifying questions that we might have based on the review. And that is the time when we will also shortlist applicants to the accelerator. So if you are not selected or not shortlisted at that point, we will send you a notification. If you are shortlisted, we'll get back to you with those additional questions. And then we plan to have a panel in April to make the final decision on the 10 cohort members who will be selected. From mid to late April, all the way up to the end of May, we want to finalize the signing of MOUs with all of the selected participants or cohort members. And then from the 1st of June, we start our implementation, which runs for 2 years. So now coming to the application itself. Now, the application is your opportunity to showcase why we should select you. So please use that. You have a lot of opportunities within the application to talk about your business strategy, talk about how the accelerator support will benefit you. And you'll see in all of those questions quite generous word limits given for you to allow to express yourself. However, please do limit yourself to the word limits so that the review process becomes easier for the team as well. Before you start your application, read the term sheet, especially the eligibility and selection criteria, because that is where you will really understand where you want to focus on with this application. And for the detailed answers, talk about the specific aspects of that eligibility and selection criteria that your service helps to solve. So, for example, what is the problem smallholders are facing in the market that you are looking to resolve? Or what is your pathway to profitability, and what is the strength of your service and the clarity of your business plans? Those are things that you should be looking to highlight in your application. And most importantly, how is the solution that you are putting forward inclusive for female farmers, for farmers with disabilities, or for youth? Now, within the application, you'll see quite a few types of questions. There's some drop-down menus or radio buttons, which are quite obvious. You select the option that applies best to you. There's a few questions with checkboxes where you're encouraged to select all that apply. So as an example, where we ask you for the use cases that your service is addressing. You might have a service that addresses digital advisory as well as access to finance for farmers. Feel free to check both digital advisory as well as agri-digital financial services in that case. There's a few file upload options where you will see us asking for documents such as your registration certificate or your financials for the last year. So please use that opportunity to upload these. Next to each of the questions, next to those questions that are mandatory, you will see these red asterisks, which give you an idea that this has to be filled in. And of course, the application cannot be submitted without those mandatory questions. That does not mean that the optional questions are any less important. It's just that those questions might not apply to everyone who is applying for becoming a part of the accelerator cohort. So that's how the mandatory and the optional questions can be identified. There's then a few questions that require detailed answers. And for that, you will see at the base of the question the word limit that is allowed for that question. And for most questions that require detailed answers, this is limited to 200 words. So please do stick to that word limit. You'll see a count on the right, on the bottom right of that question in terms of how many words are left. And then finally, there are some tables that you have to fill in. And on those tables, you have the option to add more rows to the table if that is required, right? So for example, where we ask you for partners who are critical to the delivery of your service, you can add 2, 3, 4 as you feel relevant. So before we jump into the application itself, the key success factors that you have to keep in mind. Remember the objectives of the accelerator, right? Why we are putting this together, why the GSMA is investing, both time and resources in in this accelerator is to improve smallholder farmers' livelihoods, climate resilience, and financial inclusion. So please remember those objectives as you fill your application. Don't be shy about highlighting why your team is the best or why it is best suited to deliver on the objectives of the accelerator. Similarly, highlight your business strategy with an angle of, how it is, again, aligned with the objectives, but also how it means that you will benefit from the support that the AgriTech Accelerator is offering. The next bit is, again, about the fundraising plans and growth plans. The more clearly you articulate that, the more well structured our support for your fundraising plans will be. And finally, a very, very important part of the entire accelerator process is cross-learning. So you will be part of a cohort, of an international cohort that brings together organizations in the same space as yourself, working maybe on different use cases, but very much focused on those same objectives that you're setting for yourself. And the most value that we have seen organizations get from GSMA support in the past comes from that willingness to learn, engage, try new things, and commit time to the accelerator so that you're learning not only from the GSMA team and their expertise, but also the entire cohort that is working on similar projects as yourself. Right. So in terms of the next steps, your applicant pack, which is again available on our website, the link has been shared in the chat window by one of my colleagues. On the website, you can download all 4 of these documents, which is the term sheet, which lays out all the eligibility requirements, the selection criteria, the commitments that are required from cohort members, and so on. You will also see a PDF version of the concept note questions. That's just to help you put together your application if you want separately on a Word document. But it is very important to highlight that we will only accept applications that are submitted online. And so, this PDF version is just to help you prepare for that online version if you so desire. You'll also see an FAQs section, which is built around the questions that we have been asked about the accelerator. And finally, you'll see some guidelines for your product manager. Very important to highlight that the product manager will be the key interface between your organization and the GSMA. Just like the market engagement manager will be the key interface from the GSMA side. So it's very important to pick the right person to lead this engagement from your side. As you get towards submission, review these contents of the applicant pack that I've just shared. Start drafting your applications. If you have partnerships that are in the pipeline, if you think they can be signed up before the 10th, that's great. If not, you can mention them in the potential partners section. And then if you have any questions, please reach out to us on this email address, agritechaccelerator@gsma.com, and we'll get back to you as quickly as possible. As a reminder, 5 p.m. GMT on the 10th of February, that's the deadline. After 5 p.m., the online application will be taken down and you will not be able to submit after that time. Now, I'll quickly want to walk you through the application itself, and this is not going to take more than 3 or 4 minutes. But when you go to our website, you click through the apply button. This is the screen that you see. I'd request my colleague, if it's possible, to just share that screen, as it might help showcase the actual application itself. But while that is being put up, I just want to highlight that you'll see those same types of questions that I've highlighted before. Go through them and have a look at what the opportunities are for you to showcase the strength of your service, to showcase how you are aligned with the objectives of the accelerator. We'll just wait a minute for the application to come up. Right. So you click through the apply now on the GSMA website. You get to this page, and then you click through on the start. But before you click through on the start, please remember there is an option to download a few documents on that link, and that's basically the most important one. The rest are everything that you can find on the website. The most important one is this top one, AgriTech Accelerator Key Performance Indicators. So this will be required as an answer to one of the questions. You'll need to fill this out and upload it. So please do remember to download before you start. Once you start, you will you'll see all these different sections. The beginning, the first 15 or so questions are very straightforward, focused on your organization, the name, the type of entity, your website, and so on. And you'll see all those variety of types of answers, those drop down menus and radio buttons and so on. Your key contact person. All of that goes up to question 15, which is about your organization and basic details. From 16 onwards, we start to focus on your service. And so we ask you about your business activities and how digital agriculture is a core part of your strategy. We then move into the use cases and the sub-use cases that appear as radio buttons. So please feel free to check the ones that are most relevant to you. And then there's quite a few questions that you'll see about the strength of your service, your partnerships, who are the core partners that you're working with, the value chains that you are working in, your ambitions, and what are the kind of core risks and challenges to your ambitions. You'll see one about why you think the technical assistance from GSMA will help you iterate and scale the service. So these are exactly the kind of points that I've been discussing in this webinar. And then if we go down a bit further, you'll see questions around your co-founders. That's important for us to have a look at your co-founders' profiles or your founders' profiles, as well as the country of origin. You might recall we encourage local entrepreneurs and so on. Going down, you will see some questions about your financials, your burn rate, your revenue, and so on. And again, some of these tables, where relevant, will have opportunities to add rows. In this case, however, there's no need to add further rows, so that option will not be available. And a key element will be your pathway to profitability, which again links to your financials. We then talk about your fundraising plans and your, what kind of fundraising you have raised in the past and what you will be raising in the future. The next section is about your team structure. This is where your product manager comes in, your C-level sponsors, your cross-functional team, and the experiences that your core team members have on delivering services that address the objectives of the accelerator. And next up, we have a section, I believe, on inclusion, inclusivity, where we talk about what steps you've taken up to now and what steps you'll be taking in the future to make sure that your services are inclusive. And finally, there's a few elements of compliance and commitments that we require from cohort members. So with all of that done, I will stop here. I'll invite my colleague Matt to please go through the questions. He'll be moderating the Q&A. So Matt, over to you. Please feel free to raise the questions that everyone's asked.
Many thanks, Ahmed, and thank you everyone for joining. I hope you found that really useful. We've got quite a few questions in here. We'll try and get through as many as we can through the next few minutes. I know my colleagues have been answering a couple of these as we've gone. So if I just focus on, I'm just catching up. Yes, so the recording will be made available after the session. So there's been a few questions about that. Here we go. So Ahmed, we've got a question here. If we are not a registered country, if we're not a registered company in the list of eligible countries mentioned, can we get into a joint venture contract with a company that has registered incorporation in eligible countries? And also, just to add to this, there was a question about can we apply as a separate question, but applying as a consortium of 2 or 3 companies.
Yeah. So you are required to have registration in one of the eligible countries. The joint venture option can work as long as your joint venture partner is the one who is the applicant in that case, and you are mentioned as one of the implementing partners in the application. So the application itself has to be filled in by an organization that is registered in one of the eligible markets and will require evidence of that registration to be shared with us as part of the application.
Thanks, Ahmed. And then just to, again, I'm going to combine 2 questions here. One is, hello, is Kenya eligible? And another one saying, as a UK-based company, am I correct in thinking we are not eligible for the accelerator?
Right. So quick answers. Kenya, unfortunately, is not eligible. For the UK-based company, again, going back to my previous answer, if you have a subsidiary office set up in one of the eligible markets and you feel your operations in that market are aligned with the objectives of the accelerator, you can absolutely apply. Or you can join as a partner to one of the applicants who is already applying. But if you only have registration in the UK and not in one of the eligible markets, then no.
Thanks, Ahmed. And then I know we've got some questions in the Q&A as well, but I'm just moving through the chat questions for the minute. George M asks, are companies with a product vertical not yet launched encouraged to apply?
So that's a tricky question in the sense that if you don't have a digital agriculture service that is live at this time, that is revenue generating, and that has existing users, then you are ineligible to apply. If, however, you have a product vertical within, let's say, smart farming that is live and that is aligned with the objectives of the accelerator, and you now want to scale that and diversify into digital financial services, which, for example, which you might not have launched at this time. That's a vertical that you are looking to launch. In that case, you will be eligible. So as long as you have a product vertical that is aligned with the objectives, meets all the other eligibility requirements, and you are eligible to apply. But if you don't have even a single vertical that is currently live, then you will not be eligible to apply.
Great, thanks, Ahmed. And then another question here from Precious asking, if you are a registered company, but you don't have a registered physical office, are you still eligible?
So that's an interesting question. Yes, you will be eligible because you are registered in that country. When, however, we are assessing that application on a like-for-like basis, let's say everything else is the same between you and another applicant, and that applicant has an office in the country, has teams on the ground, then that will be something that would be more beneficial to the one that has an office in the country. But in terms of pure eligibility, as long as you're registered in the country of implementation, you will be eligible.
Great, thanks, Ahmed. And then we've got a good question here. So Hassan Lamal has asked, can we propose 2 projects for smallholder farmers?
Yes, And there's a variety of different similar questions that we've received in the past. So I'll try and cover a few options over there. So if you have two projects in two separate markets, then we will require you to submit two separate applications. You can apply for both. Obviously, no guarantees that either one would be selected. It is almost impossible for both to be selected, but you can definitely apply for both. And if it's in two different markets. If it's in the same market, you don't need two different applications. You will then be applying to say that we do X and we also do Y to support the objectives of the accelerator and improve smallholder farmers' livelihoods, financial inclusion, and climate resilience. The way I would suggest you structure that is to look at the use cases and the sub-use cases that are relevant for each of those two services, and then in your detailed answers, highlight where each of those services are. So as I mentioned before, at least one of them has to be live, has to have existing users, existing revenue, and so on. So I think that would answer your question.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Ahmed. And then there's a more, I guess, logistical question from Almet asking, and I think this is the application, the online application form. Can the data on the website, so I think this is the application form, be stored and accessed at a later stage? Or do you have to enter everything at once and submit immediately afterwards?
No, it can be accessed at a later time. It's automatically saved. Unless I believe if you clear all your browsing history during that time. So if you want to reuse the application, I would suggest don't clear your browsing history, and it should be there when you log in again, when you get back to it.
Great. Okay. And the question here from Kofi asking, please, are NGOs eligible to apply?
No, so one of the eligibility requirements is for you to be a for-profit organization. However, we very, very strongly recommend applicants to look at potential partnerships with NGOs or community-based organizations who they feel are relevant to the delivery of their services and can help them in specific ways. For example, unlocking access to smallholders. So NGOs can come in as project partners, but not as the applicant themselves. Thanks,
Ahmed. And then I'm just trying to get to the bottom of these questions, and we'll flip to the Q&A. Okay, so Rabib is asking, if we have only pilot projects and not yet generating revenue, are we eligible?
Pilot projects that are generating revenue are eligible. Pilot projects that are not generating revenue are ineligible. So one of the key eligibility requirements that you'll see in the term sheet will be around revenue generation. And so that's a mandatory part of it.
Thank you. And then a couple of upvoted questions here. So one from Gemma, does the company registry need to be for a certain number of years? Sorry, pardon me. Let me start again. Gemma asks, does the company registry need to be a certain number of years old? For example, could a company register in one of the eligible countries and then apply?
Right. So you need to have at least 2 years of operations as a company in order to be eligible for the accelerator support. In most cases, that would mean 2 years of registration. Now, one particular case that has been highlighted to us in the past is where an organization is registered in an ineligible market for 3-4 years and working on use cases that very much align with the objectives of the accelerator, but they only have been registered in the country of implementation for 1.5 years, which is less than the 2-year requirement. So in those kinds of situations, we would be happy to make exceptions because the organization itself has been around for more than 2 years. The only thing I would add over here is if the company has been registered, let's say on the 5th of February, and is applying for the accelerator support, on the 10th of February, it would be a weak application. Even if you have 5 years of experience somewhere else, but in the implementing country, you've only been registered 5 days ago, that would be a red flag.
Thank you, Ahmed. Okay, and McCroy asks, we are a non-profit, but work with farmer associations and co-ops and youth, offering digital solutions which we fund through our partner. Are we eligible to apply?
Right. So very much going to the previous point about NGOs, non-profits would not be eligible. And part of the reason for that is a lot of the accelerator's support is geared towards business plans, towards commercial sustainability, towards raising, private capital and so on. And that would be, it might not be a good fit for the non-profit applying itself. However, I would again emphasize that organizations such as yours should be partners, because there's a lot of value that can be mutually added for both your organization and a selected cohort member if you have presence on the ground, if you have relationships with farmer cooperatives and so on. So yeah, please do look for partners who you think can be the lead applicant. And even if not, feel free to reach out to us in a few months once we've made the cohort selections to identify if we have a cohort member in your market, and we would be more than happy to facilitate discussions and a potential partnership.
Great, thanks, Ahmed. And then there's an important question here from Kofi, pardon me, that says, please, how much is the ceiling amount an organisation can apply for?
I believe that refers to the possibility of grant funding, if I'm not mistaken.
That's my understanding, yes.
Yeah. So if that is the question, then there is no grant funding available as part of this accelerator. So you may have noticed in the webinar, it is completely about technical assistance, about making organizations more ready and able to iterate, improve their services, and scale.
Thanks, Ahmed. I'm just going to flip to the Q&A because I think there's a few other questions just hiding in there. So give me 1 second.
Sure.
If you're sitting on a question that's not already been answered, then please do drop it into either the chat or the Q&A. But here we go. So I think there's one here from Mohammed saying, how much will be the budget for the implementation of a project and the overheads to be covered? I think you've just answered that with the previous response, Ahmed. And then I think we've already covered this one, or a similar question, which was, is it possible to apply as a consortium of 2 or 3 companies? And yeah, the simple answer is yes, you can. Let me just check. Okay, yeah, the information. So the information that's going into the form that the example just shared, there's lots of sort of sensitive data. So there's a question here saying, will the submitted information on the applications be treated confidentially?
Absolutely. Any information that you share will not be shared with anyone outside of the GSMA, more specifically those individuals within GSMA who will be involved in the selection process. And then, once, yeah, so absolutely all information will be treated with the strictest of confidentiality.
Okay, and then someone has asked, who can people contact if they have questions about what's required? So that's the AgriTech Accelerator email address, and I think my colleague's just going to drop that into the chat so that everybody has that. And we're going to run out of time on this webinar very shortly. But if you have got questions as you're going through the application form, please do reach out and the team will respond as quickly as possible. I just want to return to the chat window to make sure I've not missed anything. But I think we've covered everything. So this is kind of last call for any additional questions that have not been covered before we wrap things up. So yeah, the email address has just gone into that chat window. But I don't see anything else coming in. So, oh, here we go. There's one from David. Sorry, yes, I think I must have missed this earlier. Apologies, David. Ours is a government-owned establishment that runs the livelihood improvement program for farmers and rural dwellers. Are we eligible to apply? How do we fill the ownership part?
Yeah, so again, similar answer to the NGOs and nonprofit scenario. Because of the nature of support the accelerator is offering, we would strongly recommend partnerships with government organizations for the cohort members. And like I mentioned, once we've selected the cohort, feel free to reach out to us in a few months, and we'd be happy to connect you if there is a cohort member selected in your country. And so and if there's potential for a partnership there, we would be more than happy to facilitate that.
Thanks. There was just also a question, someone asking if we can go over the eligible markets again. So I've just shared the page with the eligible countries, but otherwise I think, yeah, so the recording will get shared shortly after this, well, in the next day or so after this webinar. We'll email the attendees and the registrants to let them know the recording is available. But Ahmed, maybe I can hand back over to you to wrap things up. Thanks very much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Matt. So just to add to the eligible markets, once you go through the applicant pack, there's you'll find the eligible markets in the term sheet in the applicant handbook. Please do go through those, and you'll be able to find all the information that is required. If you have additional questions, please reach out to us on the email address that we've shared, AgriTech Accelerator @gsma.com. And again, that's also available on the website and in the application pack. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending, and we look forward to receiving your applications and look forward to staying in touch. Have a good day. Thank you so much.
Enjoy the rest of your week, and look forward to hearing from you soon. Bye now.